The crystal towers of Nexus Prime reached high into the purple sky. Inside the biggest tower, 47 different alien species sat around a huge table. The room was so large that some aliens needed special breathing masks. Others sat in pools of water or hung from the ceiling. Ambassador Zix Thrall stood up from his seat. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like green metal. His 4 eyes looked around the room at all the other aliens. He was scared, but he tried not to show it. "We have a problem," Zix Thrall said. His voice made a sound like wind through metal pipes. "The humans are moving into space that belongs to us." A creature that looked like a giant spider clicked its legs together. "Humans are weak," it said. "They have small ships and simple weapons. Why should we worry?" Zix Thrall's eyes changed color from blue to red. This meant he was angry. Because they do not fight like other species. They do not follow the rules of war. Far away from Nexus Prime, Commander Jake Morrison sat on the bridge of his ship. The ship was called the UES Defiant. It was not the biggest ship in space, but it was strong. Jake was 40 years old and had short brown hair. He had been in space battles before. "Commander," said Lisa Grant. She was sitting at the weapons station. Lisa had long black hair and was very good at her job. "We are getting strange readings from the Kepler 442 system." Jake looked at the screen in front of him. Numbers and lines moved across it. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures that don't match anything in our database," Lisa said. "It could be a new type of ship." Pete Collins looked up from his station. Pete was the chief engineer. He was a big man with red hair and always had grease on his hands. "Could be trouble, Commander. That system is supposed to be empty." Jake thought for a moment. The Kepler 442 system was near the edge of human space. If aliens were there, it could mean they were planning something bad. "Set course for Kepler 442, Jake said. "We need to see what's going on." The Defiant turned and started moving toward the system. The ship's engines made a low, humming sound. Inside the ship, 200 human crew members went about their work. They did not know that alien ships were watching them. Hidden in the asteroid belt around Kepler 442, War Prime Kethver sat in his command chair. Kethver was huge, even for his species. He had 6 arms and skin, like black stone. His ship was 10 times bigger than the human vessel. Heading toward them. "The human ship approaches," said one of his officers. This alien looked like a giant insect with sharp claws. Kethver smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. "Perfect. We have studied these humans for months. We know all about their ships and weapons. This will be easy." Around Kethver's ship, 2 other large alien vessels waited. Each one had enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Together, they could easily defeat 1 human ship. "Their weapons are primitive," said another officer. "Their ship is slow and weak. Why do the council members fear these creatures?" Kethver stood up from his chair. All 6 of his arms moved as he spoke, because the council members are old and scared. They see problems where there are none. Today we will show them that humans die just like any other species. On the Defiant, Jake Morrison stood looking out the front window of his ship. Space looked empty and peaceful. Stars twinkled in the distance like tiny diamonds. "Commander," said the communications officer. His name was Carl Brooks, and he was young and nervous. "I'm picking up something on long-range sensors." "What is it?" Jake asked. 3 large ships. They're hiding behind the asteroids." Jake felt his heart beat faster. 3 ships meant this was not an accident. Someone was waiting for them. "Battle stations," Jake said into the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill. All hands to battle stations." Red lights started flashing throughout the ship. The crew moved quickly to their positions. Lisa Grant's fingers moved over. her weapons controls. Pete Collins ran to the engine room to make sure everything was working properly. In the alien fleet, Cuthbert gave his orders. Decloak all ships. Demand their surrender. When they refuse, destroy them quickly. The 3 alien ships suddenly appeared in space around the Defiant. They were massive and dark, with weapons that glowed like angry red eyes. The human ship looked tiny next to them. A voice came over the Defiant's communication system. It sounded like metal scraping against stone. Human vessel. You have entered space that belongs to us. Surrender now or be destroyed. Jake looked at Lisa Grant. She was checking her weapons. They had missiles and energy cannons, but nothing that could fight 3 ships this big. Send a message back, Jake said to Carl Brooks. Tell them we are here on a peaceful mission. We don't want to fight. Carl sent the message. For a moment, space was quiet. Then the alien voice came back, louder and angrier. You have 10 seconds to surrender. Then we will open fire. Jake knew they could not win this fight. The smart thing to do would be to surrender or run away. But Jake Morrison was human, and humans did not give up easily. All power to weapons and shields, Jake said. If they want to fight, we'll give them one. The crew of the Defiant prepared for battle. They knew they would probably die, but they would not go down without fighting. This was something the aliens did not understand about humans. It was something that would change everything. The first blast of alien fire hit the Defiant's left side. The ship shook like an earthquake. Lights flickered and sparks flew from broken equipment. Jake Morrison held on to his captain's chair to keep from falling. Damage report. Jake shouted. Over the noise, Pete Collins' voice came through the communication system from the engine room. Left engine is damaged. We're losing power to the portside weapons. Lisa Grant kept working at her station even as more sparks flew around her. I can still fire the starboard weapons. Give me a target. War Prime Cuthbert watched the battle. From his command ship, he expected the human vessel to explode or surrender after the first hit. Instead, the small ship turned and fired back. Impossible, said one of Cuthbert's officers. Their weapons cannot hurt our shields. But Cuthbert was not watching the weapons. He was watching how the human ship moved. It should have been running away or asking for mercy. Instead, it was flying straight at his ships, not on the Defiant. Pete Collins was doing something that no alien engineer would ever try. He was crawling through broken pipes and damaged wiring to reach the ship's power core. The radiation levels were dangerous, but Pete did not care. I can reroute power from life support to the weapons, Pete said into his radio, but we'll only have 20 minutes of air. Do it, Jake said without hesitation. Lisa Grant heard this and felt her heart skip. 20 minutes of air meant they were choosing to die fighting rather than live as prisoners. She aimed the ship's weapons at the largest alien ship. Firing all weapons, Lisa said. The Defiant's missiles and energy beams hit the alien ship's shields. The shields flickered, but did not break. But something else happened that Cuthbert did not expect. The human ship did not stop firing. It kept shooting even when it was obvious the weapons were not working. Why do they keep fighting? Asked one of the alien officers. Their weapons cannot penetrate our defenses. Cuthbert did not answer. He was starting to feel something he had never felt before in battle. He was starting to feel worried. The second alien ship fired at the Defiant. This time, the blast hit the ship's middle section. The hull cracked and air started leaking into space. Emergency doors slammed shut, trapping some crew members in damaged areas. Hull breach on Deck 5, reported Carl Brooks. 20 crew members are trapped. Any other species would have tried to rescue their trapped crew members. But the humans on the Defiant did something different. The 20 trapped crew members sealed the doors from inside and kept working at their stations. "Bridge, this is Deck 5, came a voice over the radio. It was Lieutenant Tony Garcia, one of the trapped crew members. "We're losing air, but we can still operate the secondary weapons. Keep fighting." Cuthbert heard this message because his ships were listening to all human communications. He could not believe what he was hearing. The humans were choosing to die at their posts rather than abandon their ship. "This is not normal behavior," he said to his officers. "What species does this?" But the humans were not finished surprising him. Pete Collins had made it to the ship's power core. The reactor was damaged and leaking deadly radiation. Any alien would have given up and evacuated. Pete Collins put on a radiation suit and crawled inside the reactor chamber. "Pete, what are you doing?" Jake asked over the radio. "The containment field is failing," Pete replied. His voice was calm, even though he was about to die. "I can fix it manually, but I'll have to stay here to keep it stable." "That's suicide," Lisa said. "Maybe," Pete replied. "But if I don't do this, we all die in the next 5 minutes. This way, you get to keep fighting for another hour." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. Pete Collins had a wife and 2 children back on Earth, but Pete was doing this anyway because it gave his friends a better chance to win. "Do it, Pete," Jake said in the engine room. Pete Collins opened the reactor core with his bare hands. Radiation poured over him like invisible fire. He knew he would be dead in minutes, but he held the containment field together anyway. The Defiance. Power came back online. All weapons were working again. The ship's speed increased. Cuthbert watched his sensors with growing alarm. The human ship should have been dead by now. Instead, it was getting stronger, and it was flying directly at his command ship. "What are they doing?" he asked. "I believe they intend to ram us," said an officer. "That's suicide. They would be destroyed." "Yes, War Prime. But so would we." For the first time in his military career, Cuthbert felt afraid. These humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to take as many enemies with them as possible when they died. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel," Cuthbert ordered. "Destroy it now." All 3 alien ships fired at once. The space around the Defiant filled with energy beams and missiles. The human ship's shields failed. The hull was torn open in a dozen places. Half the crew was dead, but the ship kept coming. Jake Morrison was bleeding from a head wound. Lisa Grant's station was on fire, but she kept firing the weapons. The 20 crew members on Deck 5 had run out of air, but they had died at their posts, still operating the ship's systems. "Jake," Pete Collins' voice came over the radio one last time. "The reactor's going to explode in 2 minutes. You need to get everyone to the escape pods." "Negative," Jake replied. "We're almost in ramming position." "Jake, you can still save some of the crew." "The crew voted," Jake said. "We stay with the ship." Cuthbert could not understand what he was hearing. The humans had a chance to save some of their people, but they were choosing to die instead. And they were still flying straight at his ship. Evasive maneuvers. Cuthbert shouted, but it was too late. The Defiant crashed into the side of the alien command ship. The human ship exploded, but the blast tore a huge hole in the alien vessel. Air and alien crew members were sucked out into space. Cuthbert's ship was dying, but something even worse was happening. From the wreckage of the human ship, he saw something that made his blood freeze. Small figures in spacesuits were flying toward his ship. The human crew had not all died in the crash. Some of them had put on spacesuits at the last second and were now trying to board his vessel. 25 humans with nothing but hand weapons were attacking a ship designed to hold 300 aliens. It should have been impossible. But as Cuthbert watched, the humans cut through his ship's hull and disappeared inside. For the first time in his life, War Prime Kethfer gave an order he never thought he would give. All ships retreat. Retreat. Now, but it was too late. The humans were already inside his ship, and they were still fighting. The news traveled fast through the galaxy. At first, nobody believed the reports. A single human ship had fought 3 alien warships and somehow won. It seemed impossible. But then the Dominion fleet released their battle recordings. The video. Files spread through space faster than light, carried by trading ships and communication relays. Soon, every major civilization in the galaxy had seen the footage. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in her laboratory aboard the UES Discovery. Elena was a scientist who studied alien behavior and psychology. She had short gray hair and wore thick glasses. For 30 years, she had been trying to understand how different species thought and acted. "Tom, come look at this," Elena called to her assistant. Tom Bradley walked over to Elena's desk. Tom was young and smart, with messy brown hair and a coffee stain on his shirt. He looked at the screen Elena was pointing to. "What am I looking at?" Tom asked. "Requests for information about human psychology," Elena said. 47 different alien governments want to know how humans think. They all want to know the same thing, which is why we don't surrender when we're going to lose. Amy Watson, the team's communication specialist, joined them at the desk. Amy was tall and thin with red hair. She spoke 12 different alien languages and could understand the thoughts behind their words. "I've been monitoring alien news broadcasts," Amy said. "They're all talking about the same thing. The battle at Kepler 442 has scared them." Elena pulled up a file on her computer. "I've been studying human military history. Every war we've ever fought, every battle we've ever been in, we have one thing in common." "What's that?" Tom asked. "We never give up. Even when we're outnumbered, even when we're outgunned, even when we're dying, we keep fighting." Amy sat down at the desk. "But other species do surrender. They calculate their chances and give up when the odds are too bad." "Exactly," Elena said. "But humans evolved differently. On Earth, surrender usually meant death. If you gave up to a predator, it ate you. If you gave up to an enemy tribe, they killed you. So we learned that surrender equals extinction." Tom pulled up another file. "I've been looking at alien evolution. Most species evolved with clear social hierarchies. When they fight, the loser submits and the winner lets them live. It's like a game with rules. But humans don't play by those rules," Elena said. "We treat every fight like it's a fight to the death, because for millions of years it was." Meanwhile, in the command center of the hegemony's main fleet, Admiral Qustal was having a very bad day. Qustal looked like a giant octopus with blue skin and 8 arms. He was one of the most successful military commanders in the galaxy. "Run the simulation again," Qustal said to his tactical computer. The computer showed a holographic battle between hegemony ships and human vessels. The humans were outnumbered 10 to 1, but they won anyway. The computer showed the same result. Every time. "Computer, explain why the humans win," Qustal said. "Humans do not follow standard military doctrine," the computer replied. "They accept casualty rates that other species consider unacceptable. They use tactics that are mathematically inefficient, but psychologically devastating. Give me an example." "Ramming attacks. Humans will sacrifice their own ships to damage enemy vessels. This is not cost-effective, but it forces the enemy to retreat to avoid losses." Qustal's 8 arms moved nervously. "What about boarding actions?" "Humans board enemy ships, even when outnumbered. They fight inside the ship until killed or victorious. Other species evacuate damaged vessels. Humans stay and fight." The Admiral stared at the holographic display. Computer, what would it take to defeat a human fleet? To guarantee victory against humans, you would need to accept casualty rates exceeding 300% of normal operations. The psychological impact on your own forces would be severe. 300% casualties meant that for every human ship destroyed, 3 alien ships would be lost. No military commander could accept those losses. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. The Crystalline Collective's war mind, a computer intelligence that controlled their entire military, reached the same conclusion. Fighting humans was too expensive. The Synthetic Dominion, a civilization of robot warriors, calculated that defeating humans would require rebuilding their entire fleet afterward. Even machines found this unacceptable. Captain Rick Stone received new orders at his base on Mars. Rick was a veteran pilot with 20 years of experience. He had fought in the Centauri Wars and the Vega conflict. His new assignment was unlike anything he had ever done. Joint training exercises? Rick asked his commanding officer. That's right, said General Barbara Hayes. We're going to train with alien crews. Show them how we fight. Why would they want to learn from us? Their technology is better. Because they're scared of us, the general said. And they want to understand why. 2 weeks later, Rick found himself on a space station orbiting Jupiter. The station was filled with aliens from 6 different species. They all wanted to watch humans. Train for combat. Begin simulation, said the computer. The training scenario was simple. Rick's squadron of 12 human fighters had to defend the space station from 30 alien attackers. The odds were terrible, but Rick had faced worse. All pilots, this is Stone, Rick said into his radio. Remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to survive long enough to get the civilians evacuated. Copy that, Captain, replied Lieutenant Jenny Moore. How long do we need to hold them? 20 minutes. Roger. Beginning evasive maneuvers. The alien observers watched the simulation with growing amazement. The human pilots did not try to defeat the attackers. Instead, they used themselves as bait to draw the enemy away from the station. When their ships were damaged, they did not retreat for repairs. They kept fighting with whatever weapons still worked. Fascinating, said Zix Thrall, who had come to observe the training. Look at how they sacrificed themselves for the civilians. This is not efficient, replied another alien observer. They could save more lives by retreating and getting reinforcements. But they won't retreat, Zix Thrall said, even if it means they all die. In the simulation, Rick's fighter was badly damaged. One engine was gone, his weapons were failing, and his life support was running out of air. Any rational pilot would have ejected or retreated. Instead, Rick flew his damaged ship directly at the largest enemy vessel. Stone, what are you doing? Jenny Moore asked over the radio. Buying you time, Rick replied. Keep those civilians safe. The alien observers watched in silence as Rick's ship crashed into the enemy vessel. Both ships exploded. The human pilot was dead, but he had destroyed the enemy's most powerful ship. The simulation is over, the computer announced. Human forces have successfully defended the station. Zix Thrall looked at the other alien observers. They were all thinking the same thing. The humans had won, but at a terrible cost. Half of Rick's squadron was dead. Any other species would call this a defeat, but the humans called it a victory because they had saved the civilians. They measured success differently than other species. For humans, winning meant protecting what they cared about, even if it cost them their lives. I think I understand now, Zix Thrall said quietly. They don't fight to win. They fight to survive. And they will do anything to survive. The word spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The real reason nobody wanted to battle humans was not their technology or their numbers. It was their willingness to die rather than surrender. and their terrifying ability to win even when they were dying. 6 months had passed since the battle at Kepler 442. Not a single alien government had attacked human territory. The official reports said it was because of diplomatic negotiations and peaceful agreements. But Colonel Ben Harper knew the truth. Ben sat in his office at the Interspecies Liaison Office on Earth. The office was small and cramped, filled with reports from across the galaxy. Ben was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. His job was to keep track of how aliens were reacting to humans. "Sir, you need to see this," said Katie Price, his assistant. Katie was a smart woman with black hair who studied military strategy. She had been tracking alien behavior patterns for months. "What is it now?" Ben asked. "The Vorthan Empire just withdrew their claim to the Tau Ceti system," Katie said. "That's the third system they've given up this month." Ben looked at the star map on his wall. Red pins showed places where aliens had pulled back their forces. There were dozens of red pins now. "Any official reason?" Ben asked. "They said it was because of resource allocation concerns," Katie replied. "But intelligence reports show something different." Katie pulled up a file on her computer. The Vorthan High Command held a secret meeting last week. They discussed human combat footage for 6 hours. Then they ordered all their fleets to avoid human space. Ben was not surprised. The same thing was happening everywhere. Alien governments were quietly moving their military forces away from human territory. They were not announcing it, but they were doing it. "What about the pirates?" Ben asked. "That's the interesting part," Katie said. "Pirate attacks on human ships have dropped by 90%, but attacks on alien ships have increased." Ben understood what this meant. The pirates were not stupid. They knew humans were dangerous to fight, so they were picking easier targets. "Show me the latest incident reports," Ben said. Katie opened another file. 3 days ago, the cargo ship UESA Prosperity was attacked by the Gorth Max Raider clan. 12 humans against 43 pirates. What happened? The humans won. They captured the pirate flagship and took the entire crew prisoner. Ben shook his head. The U's Prosperity was not a warship. It was a simple cargo vessel that carried supplies between planets. The crew included Captain Dan Murphy, a former truck driver, and engineer Grace Kelly, who used to fix cars. How did they do it? Ben asked. "They turned their cargo containers into weapons," Katie said. "Shot them at the pirate ships like giant bullets. Then they used their own ship as a battering ram and boarded the pirate flagship. Was anyone hurt? 2 humans were injured. 1 pirate was killed, but that was an accident. The humans were trying to capture them alive." Ben read the report carefully. The pirates had expected an easy target. Instead, they had run into humans who fought like wild animals. The surviving pirates were telling other raiders to avoid human ships at all costs. "What about the crystalline collective?" Ben asked. "They've stopped all expansion into the Orionorum," Katie said. "Their war mind calculated that fighting humans would require rebuilding their entire fleet afterward." Ben walked to the window and looked out at the busy streets of New York. People were walking around, going to work, living their normal lives. They had no idea that they had become the most feared species in the galaxy. "Katie, pull up the psychological profiles Dr. Rodriguez sent us," Ben said. Katie opened another file. "The Zenip psychology team has been studying human behavior for months. They think they understand why aliens are afraid of us." "Explain it to me." "Most alien species evolved with natural predators," Katie said. "They learned to run away from danger. Or they evolved with pack hierarchies, where the loser submits to the winner. But humans evolved differently." "How so?" "Humans were both predator and prey," Katie said. "We hunted other animals, but other animals also hunted us. We learned that running away or surrendering usually meant death. So we developed a different strategy, which is fight to the death, no matter what. Ben thought about this. So when we fight aliens, they expect us to follow their rules. Submit when we're beaten. Retreat when we're outnumbered. Exactly. But we don't follow those rules. We escalate every conflict to a life or death struggle. And we're very good at winning those struggles. A communication alert sounded on Ben's desk. He pressed a button and Admiral Susan Carter's face appeared on the screen. Susan was the head of Earth's diplomatic corps and one of the smartest people. Ben knew. Ben, we have a situation, Susan said. The Galactic Council wants to meet with us. What about? They want to discuss human integration into the galactic community. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. Integration could mean many things. It could mean friendship, or it could mean containment. What's your read on this? Ben asked. I think they're scared, Susan said. They don't want to fight us, but they're worried about what we might do if we keep expanding. So what do they want? I think they want to make sure we're on their side, instead of against them. 2 hours later, Ben was in a secure conference room with Admiral Carter and several other officials. On the screen was a message from the Galactic Council. Greetings, representatives of humanity, the message began. We wish to discuss the role of your species in the galactic community. The message was polite, but Ben could hear the fear underneath. The words. The aliens were trying to sound calm and friendly, but they were terrified. They want us to join their defense coalition, Susan said. Not as junior partners, but as the primary military force. Why? Asked General Robert Kim, the head of Earth's military forces. Because they know we can't be defeated, Ben said. If you can't beat someone, the smart thing to do is make them your friend. Or your weapon, Katie added quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what Katie meant. The aliens did not want humans as equals. They wanted humans as protectors. They wanted to point humanity at their enemies and let human nature do the rest. What do you think we should do? General Kim asked. Susan looked at the star map on the wall. I think we should accept their offer. But we need to be careful. Once we become the galaxy's military force, we become responsible for keeping the peace. Can we handle that responsibility? Ben asked. I don't know, Susan replied. But I know one thing for sure. We're going to find out. Ben looked at the reports scattered across his desk. Stories of humans fighting impossible odds and winning. Stories of aliens retreating rather than face human determination. Stories of a species that had gone from unknown to feared in less than a year. The real reason nobody wanted to battle humans was becoming clear. It was not because humans were stronger or smarter than other species. It was because humans treated every fight as a battle for survival. And when survival was at stake, humans would do anything to win. The galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. 1 year later, the Crystal Towers of Nexus Prime hosted another emergency meeting. But this time, the mood was very different. Ambassador Zix Thrall stood before the Galactic Council, but now he looked older and more tired. His green metallic skin had lost some of its shine. Members of the Council, Zix Thrall began, we have reached our final decision about the human question. 47 alien species listened carefully. Some were floating in tanks of special gas. Others hung from the ceiling or sat in pools of liquid. All of them were afraid. For the past year, our best military minds have studied human behavior, Zix Thrall continued. We have analyzed every battle, every conflict, every encounter between humans and other species. The room was completely quiet. Everyone knew what the report would say, but nobody wanted to hear it. Our conclusion is unanimous, Zix Thrall said. Humans cannot be defeated through conventional warfare. A creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floated closer to the speaking platform. "Surely you are exaggerating," it said in a voice like bubbling water. "They are just one species with limited technology." Zixthral's 4 eyes turned red with stress. "Technology is not the issue. Psychology is the issue. Humans do not fight like other species. They do not calculate acceptable losses. They do not retreat when the odds are bad. They fight every battle as if their entire species will die if they lose." "But that is irrational," said a spider-like creature. "Most conflicts can be resolved through surrender or negotiation." "Not with humans," Zixthral replied. "For humans, surrender equals extinction, so they never surrender. They escalate every conflict to maximum intensity and fight until either they win or they die." At the back of the great hall, 2 humans sat in special chairs designed for their species. Admiral Jim Foster was now in charge of all human military forces. He was a quiet man with short gray hair and steady blue eyes. Next to him sat Dr. Susan Carter, Earth's chief diplomatic psychologist. Jim Foster was not surprised by anything the aliens were saying. He had spent the last year watching alien governments pull their forces away from human space. Trade routes had been changed to avoid human ships. Entire star systems had been abandoned rather than risk conflict with humans. Dr. Carter leaned over and whispered to Admiral Foster, "They're more scared than I thought they would be." "Can you blame them?" Jim whispered back. "Would you want to fight a species that treats every battle like it's the end of the world?" On the speaking platform, Zixthral continued his report. "The mathematics are simple," he said. "To defeat a human fleet, we would need to accept casualty rates of 300% or higher. Even if we won, we would lose more ships than the humans." "What about using overwhelming numbers?" asked a crystalline being that looked like living diamond. "We tried that in simulations," Zixthral replied. "The humans adapt their tactics. They use suicide attacks, boarding actions, and psychological warfare. The more ships we send, the more we lose." A holographic display appeared above the council table. It showed battle footage from the past year. Human cargo ships fighting off entire pirate fleets. Human rescue vessels operating in space so dangerous that other species would not go there. Human colony ships defending themselves against raiders with nothing but mining equipment and farming tools. "Look at this footage," Zixthral said. "These are not even military vessels. These are civilian ships with civilian crews. But they fight like professional warriors." The hologram showed the merchant ship U.S. Liberty defending a refugee convoy. The Liberty was outnumbered 8-1, but the human crew had turned their cargo holds into weapon bays and their engine room into a fortress. When the pirates boarded their ship, the humans fought them in the corridors with tools and bare hands. The pirate crews were experienced fighters, Zixthral explained, but they had never encountered resistance like this. The humans fought for every room, every corridor, every inch of their ship. The pirates eventually retreated. "This makes no sense," said a floating gas-bag creature. "Why would civilians fight so hard? They could have surrendered and been ransomed back to their families." Dr. Carter stood up from her chair. The council had given her permission to speak as an expert on human psychology. "Because we don't think like that," Susan said. "For humans, surrender is not an option we consider. Our history taught us that surrender usually means death." "But this is space-age civilization," protested the jellyfish creature. "We have laws about treatment of prisoners." "Our instincts don't know that," Susan replied. "For millions of years, humans lived on a world where everything wanted to kill us. We were prey animals that learned to hunt. We were weak creatures that learned to fight stronger enemies. We survived by never giving up." Susan walked to the center of the room so all the aliens could see her. She was a small human woman surrounded by creatures they could easily kill. her, but she showed no fear. You want to know why humans are so dangerous? Susan asked. It's not because we're stronger or smarter than you. It's because we never learned how to lose properly. The alien council members looked at each other with confusion. Most species understood losing. When you were beaten, you submitted. When you were outnumbered, you retreated. This was how civilized beings behaved. Explain this concept, said the crystalline being. On Earth, losing meant dying, Susan said. If a predator caught you, it ate you. If an enemy tribe defeated you, they killed your family. If you gave up during a hunt, your children starved. So we learned that losing is not acceptable. But surely you understand rational surrender, said the spider creature. Sometimes retreat is the logical choice. We understand it, Susan replied. But we don't feel it. When a human is threatened, ancient instincts take over. We stop thinking about rational choices and start thinking about survival. Admiral Foster stood up and joined Susan in the center of the room. The council asked us here to discuss integration, he said. What exactly are you proposing? Zix Thrall looked around the room at the other ambassadors. They had all agreed on this plan, but saying it out loud was still difficult. We want humanity to join the Galactic Defense Coalition, Zix Thrall said. Not as junior members, but as the primary military force. You want us to be your army, Jim said. We want you to be our protectors, Zix Thrall corrected. The galaxy faces many threats. Pirate fleets, rogue AI systems, predator species from outside our spiral arm. These threats require a military response. And you think humans are the best choice for this job? We think humans are the only choice, Zix Thrall admitted. Our own forces are effective against conventional enemies. But some threats require unconventional responses. Susan understood what he meant. The aliens were good at fighting according to established rules. But some enemies did not follow rules. Some enemies had to be stopped by any means necessary. What? About command structure? Jim asked. Who would give the orders? The council would provide strategic guidance, Zix Thrall said, but tactical decisions would be left to human commanders. We have learned not to interfere with human military operations. This was smart, Susan thought. The aliens had studied enough human battles to know that humans fought best when left alone. Alien commanders would try to minimize casualties and preserve resources. Human commanders would focus on winning at any cost. What do we get in return? Jim asked. Full membership in the galactic community, Zix Thrall said. Access to all trade routes, all scientific databases, all diplomatic channels. Plus guaranteed security for all human colonies and shipping. It was a generous offer, but Susan knew the real reason behind it. The aliens were not just offering humanity a partnership. They were offering humanity a bribe to stay friendly. We need time to consider this, Jim said. Of course, Zix Thrall replied. But please understand the urgency. There are threats gathering at the edge of the galaxy. Threats that our normal forces cannot handle. What kind of threats? Susan asked. Zix Thrall hesitated. Machine intelligences from the Andromeda Galaxy. They have been sending scout ships into our territory. Their technology is superior to ours, and they do not respond to diplomatic contact. How superior? Jim asked. Their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons are more powerful. Their defenses are stronger. By all mathematical calculations, they should be able to conquer us easily. But you think humans can stop them? We think humans can make them think twice, Zix Thrall said. The machine intelligences are logical. They calculate odds and make rational decisions. But humans are not logical. Humans do irrational things that work. Susan smiled despite herself. The aliens were right. Humans had a talent for winning fights. They should lose. It came from millions of years of being the underdog. There's something else, Sixth Thrall added. The machine intelligences have been monitoring our communications. They have seen the footage of human combat operations, and they have changed their invasion schedule. Instead of attacking immediately, they are building more ships and weapons. They are preparing for a much harder fight than they originally planned. Jim Foster felt a chill run down his spine. The enemy was already afraid of humans, and they had never even fought them. That was the power of reputation. How long do we have? Jim asked. Perhaps 5 years before they are ready to attack.